There are stories buried so deep, they whisper through the cracks of time like bones beneath floorboards. This is one of them. October 13th, 1899. Selkirk, Montana. 7 sisters vanished. Not a scream, not a trace, just empty beds and silence where laughter once lived. But what the official records never said, the part they sealed for 80 years, is that the disappearance wasn't sudden. It was planned. Or worse, orchestrated. By men whose names still echo in boardrooms, whose descendants control banks, law, even the stories you're allowed to hear. This isn't just a mystery. It's a gateway, a descent into the machinery of control, a blueprint of how innocence is weaponized and families are sacrificed for power. Selkirk was never just a mining town, it was a proving ground, and the Thornfield sisters were never missing. They were taken, for reasons no one in 1899 could speak aloud, and no one in 2025 is supposed to remember. But we will remember, because the truth has waited long enough. Selkirk was a frontier town draped in civility. But behind lace curtains and church hymns, something ancient stirred. Gabriel Thornfield was no ordinary merchant. His rise was too fast, too smooth. He arrived from Ohio with nothing but a wagon, and within 2 years controlled nearly every trade route between Butte and Spokane. No one questioned him, not because they trusted him, but because they feared what they sensed beneath his smile. The 7 sisters weren't just daughters, they were symbols, living proof of his story, or perhaps payment for it. That autumn, people saw the signs. Catherine pacing, Sarah's voice trembling, Margaret forgetting names she'd known for years. But the most disturbing detail? Each girl, for weeks before the disappearance, had been visiting the church alone, late at night, whispering in confessionals, lighting candles with trembling hands, as if they knew what was coming, and were praying it would change nothing. The last confirmed sighting of the sisters was beneath the flickering gaslight outside the telegraph office, standing in a perfect line, facing the train station. Not moving, not speaking, just waiting. They were dressed in their finest gowns, as if prepared for a ceremony or a sacrifice. At 9:21 p.m. a train pulled in, but no name was logged in the station ledger, no passenger manifest, no destination listed. It simply appeared. A black engine unmarked. Steam that smelled of sulfur and scorched metal. Witnesses say they saw the sisters board the final car in silence. No one spoke. No one resisted. And then the train disappeared into the night. Never seen again. No record. No whistle. No return. Dr. Porter tried to report it. Days later, he was found dead in the Bitterroot River, throat slit ear to ear, pockets emptied, files gone. That was the first body, but not the last. What if I told you that train wasn't carrying passengers, but product? That the Thornfield sisters weren't missing, they were sold. In 1899, the US West was a hunting ground for a silent empire, a network of elite traffickers operating beneath the veneer of civilization. Politicians, railroad executives, church officials, even US Marshals. They weren't rogue actors. They were connected, systematically moving human lives across state lines with the precision of a military operation. Gabriel Thornfield's sudden wealth? It wasn't from dry goods. It was from flesh. The sealed federal report, only recently declassified, notes one chilling phrase. The daughters were known assets. Not daughters, not victims, assets. Selkirk wasn't the beginning. It was just the only one that nearly unraveled. Because one of the sisters left something behind. A journal, hidden beneath a floorboard, a confession written in code. And once decoded, it exposed everything, including names we still hear on national news today. The journal was Grace's, the mathematician, the one with a mind sharp enough to outmaneuver her father's ledgers. Inside it were no emotions, no tears, just calculations, times, routes, train numbers, dollar amounts. But hidden in those figures was horror. Each sister had a valuation. Margaret was priced highest, educated, respected, fertile. Rebecca, the youngest, was listed as a gift. This wasn't random. It was ritualized. The Thornfield home wasn't a sanctuary. It was a farm. And Gabriel was the farmer, raising daughters not for love, but for the harvest. The journal ends abruptly, with one final line scrawled over the page in ink so dark it soaked through the paper. They come for us in silence. We leave in beauty, but we leave as ghosts. The ledger was buried in 1901, literally, under concrete, inside a federal post office vault, until a demolition crew unearthed it in 1992, and everything changed. The ledger's discovery should have made headlines. 7 names, 7 prices, dates, destinations, even initials of the buyers. But within 48 hours it was gone, seized by federal agents claiming national security interest. The demolition crew was silenced. 1 man went missing. 2 more signed NDAs and vanished into obscurity. But not before one of them, Daniel Kessler, made a copy. He mailed it to his brother, a journalist in Billings, along with a letter that said, "If I disappear, they found me. Burn this copy or publish it. There is no in-between." Daniel was found 6 weeks later, in his car, engine running, hose from exhaust to window. They called it suicide. But his brother swore. Daniel was terrified of death. The copy never surfaced, until last year. On an encrypted server tied to a now-defunct foundation, one with ties to the Thornfield family line, still alive, still wealthy, still untouchable. Let's ask a forbidden question. How many disappearances in America were never disappearances, but transactions? In the 19th century alone, over 16,000 cases of vanished women and girls were written off as runaway, illness, or native attacks. But behind many of these entries was a code, a symbol, sometimes a number, that traced back to one of 5 private rail lines not listed on public maps. The Thornfield case wasn't isolated, it was part of a program. And the buyers? They weren't lowlifes, they were elite, European diplomats, railroad magnates, men whose names you'll find on university buildings, legacy trust funds, and international think tanks. This wasn't just trafficking, it was breeding. Girls raised in controlled environments, groomed, cultured, not to escape, but to attract. The 7 sisters were the crown jewel, a pure bloodline. And Gabriel? He wasn't their protector. He was their curator, their architect, their seller. And the price? Eternal silence. In 1904, 5 years after the sisters vanished, Gabriel Thornfield was found dead in the parlor of his empty mansion, his face burned beyond recognition, yet no fire had occurred. The coroner's report. Spontaneous combustion. A phrase used when men die in ways that shouldn't be possible or explainable. But the truth whispered among survivors was darker. Gabriel wasn't killed. He was erased, removed by the same hands he once served. Because he broke a rule, he left a witness. Rebecca, the youngest, the one who looked back. A month before Gabriel's death, reports emerged of a strange girl living among the Lakota on a northern reservation. Pale skin, wild eyes, speaking in riddles and numbers. The elders said she called herself 7. But when federal agents arrived to retrieve her, the entire village had vanished. Gone. No trace, just symbols carved into the earth, and a warning. We remember what was taken. There's a reason you've never heard this story in school. A reason it's not taught in Montana history, not whispered in documentaries, not etched into roadside plaques. Because the Thornfield disappearance isn't just a mystery. It's a mirror, a crack in the facade, a look into how power feeds. The railroad that once ran through Selkirk, gone. The tracks pulled up, the depot burned to the ground in 1923. Official reason? Lightning strike. But weather records show no storm that night. What was there then? A meeting between federal agents and men from the Rockefellers' Western office. They weren't there to investigate. They were there to cleanse. Files were burned, property seized, the Thornfield house demolished, and its wood sold in bulk to a Chicago firm now connected to a global defense contractor. Ask yourself this: why destroy a home, unless it remembered? And what else might still be hidden beneath that ground? You've made it this far, and that means something. You're not just watching, you're waking up. But to cross this next threshold, I need you to do something. Comment the phrase, "I see the pattern," twice. Once for yourself. Once for those still blind. The algorithm may not understand it, but the ones watching will. Because the pattern isn't just in Selkirk, it's everywhere. 7 sisters vanished in 1899. 7 other disappearances across the US matched the same structure, all girls, all trained in the arts, math, or theology, all from prominent families, all vanished near private rail lines. The Selkirk case wasn't unique. It was just exposed. The real question isn't what happened to them. It's why. Why raise these girls like royalty, only to hand them over like tribute? The answer lies in a belief older than America. Power is inherited, but control is bred. In secret lodges and candlelit boardrooms, the elite don't speak of money. They speak of bloodlines. To them, lineage is currency. And the Thornfield sisters? They were priceless. Each girl represented a convergence: intelligence, beauty, obedience, and silence. A living portfolio. Gabriel didn't raise them with love. He raised them with calculation. Private tutors, foreign etiquette, scripted routines. They were conditioned from birth to serve something beyond comprehension. And those mysterious guests who visited the Thornfield home? They weren't strangers. They were evaluators. One, known only by his initials, LM, appears repeatedly in hidden correspondences from railroad magnates and occult fraternities. Same initials appear in Yale's Skull Bones archives. Same ones tied to the procurement of qualified girls for elite finishing schools in Boston, Paris, and Bavaria. This wasn't just trafficking, it was a selection ritual. And the 7 sisters? They weren't the end. They were the template. The Thornfield template spread like wildfire, but only where power sought permanence. From 1900 to 1945, a hidden program flourished beneath the flags of progress and civilization. Young women were selected, trained, and traded, not for pleasure, but for continuity, to breed loyalty, to seed dynasties, to ensure that those who ruled never lost grip. The pattern traces through Ivy League eugenics programs, secret DARPA initiatives, and something called the Helena Project, launched in 1938, officially labeled Behavioral Resilience Research. Unofficially, it was about designing bloodlines immune to rebellion. Grace's journal warned of this. She wrote, "They think our minds are clay, but what's bred in silence grows teeth in the dark." And she was right, because some of the sisters survived, not just Rebecca. There are whispers of a secret refuge, hidden in the mountains near Flathead Lake. A place they called the 8th Room, and in that room, history rewrote itself. The 8th Room, not a metaphor, not a legend, a real place buried beneath layers of denial, wilderness, and blood. In 1972, a surveyor named Hal Bishop went off-grid near Flathead Lake. He was searching for mineral deposits, but what he found instead was architecture. Stone foundations, charred beams, and carved into the rock. I remain. Hal never published his findings. He didn't live long enough. 4 weeks later, he was found in his cabin, throat crushed, no signs of forced entry. His journal, missing. But his son, Jacob, released something before vanishing himself. A hand-drawn map and a list of names. All women. All missing. All presumed dead. Except for one. A 94-year-old woman living under the alias Ruth Gardner in Missoula. DNA testing in 2016 confirmed what some already feared. Ruth was Rebecca Thornfield. She hadn't died. She had watched. And what she remembered could destroy legacies. When researchers finally tracked down Rebecca, or Ruth, in 2016, she spoke only once. 5 words. Cold. Clear. Controlled. They never stopped, only changed. Then she refused further interviews. 3 months later, she was dead. No autopsy, no obituary. And within 48 hours, her modest home burned to the ground. No source of ignition found. But not before one box was recovered from beneath her floorboards. Inside, a locket with 7 miniature portraits, a hand-drawn diagram labeled the pattern room, and a warning scrawled on onion paper. They record everything, but only silence is safe. The pattern room appears again in leaked Department of Energy documents, disguised under a Montana hydrology study. But the blueprints? They don't match any known building style. Octagonal symmetry, precision laser markings, and deep beneath it, a chamber labeled Initiation Vault. The 7 sisters didn't just vanish. They became the model for a new kind of obedience. Inside the Initiation Vault, according to black site transcripts leaked in 2022, were 7 chairs, each one carved with a different symbol: sight, sound, will, flesh, lineage, thought, silence. 7 pillars of control, 7 paths to reshape a human soul. This was never just about trafficking, it was about programming. The sisters weren't sold to strangers. They were handed over to systems. Rebecca's map, the one found beneath her floorboards, overlays perfectly with old Masonic lodge diagrams and certain pre-Christian initiation temples buried in Gaul and Anatolia. The pattern is ancient, and the silence isn't just fear, it's ritual, to erase identity, to overwrite it, to turn bright, free minds into shadows that obey. How many leaders, icons, and stars were made this way? Born into wealth or bred for something worse? Ask yourself, when a child disappears, who benefits? And when a lineage vanishes, what replaces it? Behind the curtain. You've now seen beneath the veil, and what stared back wasn't just darkness, it was design. The mysterious disappearance of the 7 sisters of Selkirk wasn't a tragedy. It was a template. The first public crack in a machine that still operates, just under the hum of modern life. They changed the names. They changed the methods. But the goal remains: control the future by owning the bloodline. And now you must ask yourself why you were shown this. Why, out of millions, your eyes found this screen, your ears heard these words. Because maybe, just maybe, something in you has always known. You were never meant to live blind. You were meant to see the pattern. Comment it again. Let the watchers know you're not asleep. I see the pattern. I see the pattern. You are no longer innocent, and innocence is what they harvest. Welcome to the war they said never existed. Now choose your side.